Welcome back to DSR. We're returning to finish the 5th edition expanded content spells that are still valid for 5.5e, so they're still going to be covered. Most of these come from Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and these are going to be in the spells playlist. Abi-Dalzim's Horrid Wilting. This is an action to cast, available to sorcerers and wizards only, and it's a 150-foot range. You draw the moisture from every creature in a 30-foot cube centered on a point you choose within range. Each creature in that area must make a Constitution saving throw. Constructs and undead aren't affected, and plants and water elementals that make the saving throw with disadvantage. A creature takes 12d8 necrotic damage on a failed save, or half as much damage on a successful one. Non-magical plants in the area that aren't creatures, such as trees and shrubs, wither and die instantly. I guess they get no save. So this is like an upgrade to Blight. It's got a little bit of an area, which is not big. I mean, you can think of a fireball as a 40-foot cube, right? If you're playing on a square grid, and this is a 30-foot cube, so it's 75% of the dimension of one length, one of the sides of a fireball, right? So it's, but you would expect a lot more with an 8th level spell. The damage also isn't great. The average damage at this level is going to be 54, which, and I'll put this up on the screen, the damage table, that ties it for second in damage for area effect damage spells cast at level 8. Yes, Vitriolic Sphere wins. Vitriolic Sphere wins at every level, levels 4 through 8 against everything. It only loses at level 9 against Meteor Swarm, which has a big jump to 140 average damage, whereas Vitriolic Sphere is like at 62 something, 63 at level 9, so you should not cast Vitriolic Sphere at level 9. You should cast Meteor Swarm if that's what you want to do, if you want to do a big blast spell. So that's the first problem you're facing. Like, this isn't even the best area damage, and it's a smaller area, right? Abi-Dalzim's Horrid Wilting is a smaller area than Vitriolic Sphere. Vitriolic Sphere has the added benefit of it does part of its damage on a later turn, so it maybe causes 2 concentration saves for enemies. Yeah, this just really has nothing going for it. The upsides are perhaps the disadvantage for plants and water elemental creatures, which are the minority. Like, that's a small minority of what you face, depending on the campaign. Constructs and undead, on the other hand, aren't affected. They're just immune to the spell, which is worse. And those are way more common than plants and water elementals. Like, undead is probably humanoid is the single most common creature type. Undead are probably the second, and that really varies by the type of campaign you're in. Constructs are up there, though. Constructs are not one of the rare, definitely not one of the rare creature types. They're probably in the middle of the pack somewhere. So 2 of the more common ones, of more common creature types, completely immune. 2 of the more rare, like quite rare creature types, have disadvantage on the saving throw, but don't take any additional damage. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to put this up on the screen now. This is data from Caius, who queried all of the data for every monster that WotC has published for 5.5, right? So everything from the 5.5 monster manual and every expanded content monster stat block up through the Ravenloft book we just got a couple of weeks ago is all factored in here. And I'm just going to show the hit points from that data. You can see that at level 15, which you have to be in order to get Abi-Dalzim's Horrid Wilting, the average hit points of monsters you're facing at that level have 211 hit points. You would have to cast a spell 4 times to take out any creature with it, right? And yes, it's got a bit of an area. And if you could cast it 4 times, I would actually rate this better, right? But you can only cast it once. You never get more than a single 8th level spell slot, and you're going to do like 25% of their total hit points in damage. So you're going to soften them just a little bit. It is not great, right? Blaster damage does not keep up with creatures' hit points. Like, when you first get access to Fireball at level 5, you can see that the average hit points is 76. At that level, Fireball is doing almost half, right? That'll do almost half of those average creatures you face, half of their hit points, right? It's like 40%, somewhere around there. But as you go up in levels, creatures' hit points rise. They rise faster than the damage you deal with your blaster spells. So blaster spells in general become less and less valuable the higher you go in level. It seems like their main strategy is to make them go up in area, which is only useful if you can avoid friendly fire. And this does not avoid friendly fire, nor does it have a great area, nor does it have any good rider effects, which is the other thing they seem to be using. So this is going to be a C ranked spell. Yeah, not very good. Then we have Illusory Dragon, which is actually very cool. I like seeing mechanical illusions, like illusions that have mechanical benefits, right? We have too many illusions that are just squishy, DM interpretation, which are great. Like I love major image and silent image and minor illusion. It's just that it's completely up to DM interpretation and player creativity, whether or not that has any effect at all. All right, so Illusory Dragon. It's a 1 minute duration, takes your concentration, action to cast, available to wizards only. Yeah, I guess that's all right. I mean, maybe warlocks should have gotten it. The warlocks feel like they need some more options for their mystic arcanums. Anyway, the range is 120 feet. By gathering threads of shadow material from the shadow fill, you create a huge shadowy dragon in an unoccupied space that you can see within range. The illusion lasts for the spell's duration and occupies the space as if it were a creature. So this thing's got some weird properties going on. When the illusion appears, any of your enemies that can see it must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or become frightened for 1 minute. If a frightened creature ends its turn in a location where it doesn't have line of sight to the illusion, it can repeat the saving throw, ending the effect on itself on a success. So this has a one-time only area frighten effect with no friendly fire. So it's just everything that can see it, no limit on the range, right? And visual range can be, if you're on a flat ground and there's no obstructions, 5 miles. If you're on a mountain looking out over, the landscape, it could be 20 miles. So anything that can see it has to make this wisdom saving throw, and it's only your enemies specifically. Allies don't have to make the saving throw, and innocents, like innocent people don't have to make the saving throw, like bystanders, right, who are like neutral. Yeah, they don't have to make the saving throw. It's only your enemies make the saving throw. So that's kind of nice, but at this level, yes, I'll throw up the Caius's data on the frightened condition. We're looking at over 30% of creatures are, we're in tier 3? Yeah, like 30% of creatures are immune to the frightened condition. And that's what weakens the control effect of this. Then as a bonus action on your turn, you can move the illusion up to 60 feet. So this is a bonus action to move it. At any point during its movement, you can cause it to exhale a blast of energy in a 60-foot cone originating from its space. When you create the dragon, choose a damage type: acid, cold, fire, lightning, necrotic, or poison. So it's interesting we've got necrotic on this list, but not thunder. Yeah. I don't know why that is. I mean, there are some gem dragons that can do both necrotic and thunder, and psychic. So, but the standard like dragon damage types are acid, cold, fire, lightning, poison. Each creature in the cone must make an intelligence saving throw, taking 78 damage of the chosen type on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. The illusion is tangible because of the shadow stuff used to create it, but attacks miss it automatically. It succeeds on all saving throws and is immune to all damage and conditions. A creature that uses an action to examine the dragon can determine that it is an illusion by succeeding on an intelligence investigation check against your spell save DC. If a creature discerns the illusion for what it is, the creature can see through it and has advantage on saving throws against its breath. So this is actually a pretty good spell. The frightened effect is situationally good or great or useless. But using your bonus action, this weaponizes your bonus action, which is really powerful. And it weaponizes it with a huge area cone effect, dealing 7d6 damage. So it's doing 24.5 points of damage on average of any damage type you choose. You would definitely want to make sure that you test out damage types against the creatures you're fighting before you cast this. Make sure that they're not going to be resistant to the one you choose, or just go with acid. Of that entire list, acid is the least resisted. I'll put the Caius's data up on the screen for acid for these damage types. Acid is like 3%. I'm going off of memory before I can put that up on the screen, but it's like 3%. So just the least resisted. So just if you don't know, choose acid. You're probably fine. And it's also relatively easy to guess if something is going to be resistant to acid, right? If it's a black dragon that spits acid, it's resistant to acid or immune to acid. If it's an ooze, it probably is resistant or immune to acid. That's kind of the main bulk of things that are resistant and immune to acid. And it's an intelligence saving throw. So unlike Fireball, which is a dexterity saving throw against AoE effect, this is an intelligence saving throw against AoE effect, which is very interesting. And yes, I'll put the Caius's data up on the screen for the saving throws. Intelligence in tier 3 and 4 is the best saving throw to target. The average modifier is the lowest, and the bottom of the standard deviation is also the lowest as well. So that is the best saving throw to target. It doesn't matter as much in tier 1. In tiers 3 and 4, it matters a lot. So and you can do it repeatedly. So you're doing 24.5. 2 uses of this. If you hit the same creatures twice with this is doing more damage than Abi-Dalzim's Horrid Wilting, plus as a frightened effect. Plus it occupies the space. All right, so this thing's strange about how it occupies the space. It is not a creature, so it doesn't have all the creature features. It is a force. Everything in D&D is either an object, a creature, or a force. That's it. So objects and creatures have inherent properties, right? There's a bunch of rules about if you're a creature, then you can do these things. You can attune to magic items, you can take rests, things like that. Objects have inherent properties like they have an inherent AC, they have an inherent hit points, they inherently can cause half cover, three-quarters cover, full cover. Creatures inherently cause only half cover, etc. There's things like that, right? Force has no inherent properties. Okay, no inherent properties. So anything that is created by a spell that creates a force, it only has the properties of what that spell specifically says that force does. And this one says it occupies its space. So it occupies its space, but it doesn't cause cover in any way. And it's tangible. It literally says it's tangible, so you can touch it, and it occupies its space. You can't just walk into its space, although it is, what size is it? Huge. So if you're medium or smaller, you can move into its space as difficult terrain because it's 2 sizes bigger than you. But it's difficult terrain, and you cannot willingly end a move, any move. Like you can't even end a move partway through the turn. You can't move in, do something else, and then move out. You've got to keep moving. You cannot end a move inside its space. But yeah, so it's tangible. But attacks automatically miss it. It succeeds in all saving throws, and it's immune to all damage and conditions. So I kind of imagine like in my head, like Looney Tunes, right? Where yes, the rabbit Bugs Bunny is standing there, and you can shoot at him, but he just like bends his body to dodge every attack, and nothing affects him. Or most of the time, things don't affect him. He's kind of immune to everything. He's kind of like the protagonist of the Looney Tunes. So this is cool, and they can use an intelligence investigation check to disbelieve it or see through it, but that only gives them advantage on saving throw against his breath weapon. It doesn't make them immune to the breath weapon. And they still burned an action to do that, which is great. Like, great. Waste an action. That's what you want. That's almost better than dealing the damage. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's better than dealing damage. I would say it's as good as dealing the damage. If you make them waste an action, great. But you're still going to be dealing damage, and they still take half the damage even if they succeed on the save. And it's an intelligence saving throw, which a lot of creatures are really bad at. So even though the average is higher than you might expect, still the best of all of them, you can also just partly tell or have some guesses around what their intelligence scores could be. Like beasts have terrible intelligence scores. Like half of the monstrosities have terrible intelligence scores. Plants and oozes have terrible intelligence scores. Mindless undead have terrible intelligence scores. Like if you're fighting zombies and skeletons, you can just blow them away with this. They are guaranteed probably to fail the save against your DC. So this is a pretty good spell. I'm going to give it a B. It's only 1 minute. It takes your action, and it takes your concentration. So you're burning your 8th level spell slot for one fight to do a big thing. It's going to be a pretty good thing. You have to make sure you guess right with those damage types, or just go acid, which is always going to be a good guess, which is why I hate it. That's why I hate it when they give you these options. Like, it's the illusion of an interesting choice. Because really, it's not an interesting choice. The one you should just always choose is acid, just all the time. Yeah. Because it's the best one. It's the least immune and resistant. So it's the illusion of meaningful choice. And they should have just, I don't know, like they did with the draconic transformation. You turn into a dragon, and then you just do force damage. Like, that's less flavorful as you read it, but mechanically the same. So less text, less overhead, less decision overhead, all that kind of stuff. Because force is slightly less resisted and immune than acid. Or they could have just said acid. This one does only acid. I don't know. Anyway, it bugs me when they do that, which is why I feel very strongly that if you're going to do that, give them a choice of damage type. Give each of the damage types a rider so that it is a meaningful choice, and not just like, sure, people say that, oh, it's flavor, and you want to be flavored as a red dragon and it's going to deal fire damage. Sure. I've seen players do that where they intentionally choose one of those damage types based on flavor and what they feel is going to be cool. And after it gets resisted or immune a few times, they stop doing that. And then they start defaulting back to the one that's going to work the best, the most reliable. And they'll go to acid for this list. They'll go to acid every time, right? And if thunder's in the list, I think thunder is even less resisted than acid. So you go thunder first, right? That's what bothers me. It's the illusion of meaningful choice, which just makes this unnecessary overhead. And you could go force, which I think is just too bland. Like, that's why my preference is give it a rider effect. Then it's back to an interesting, meaningful choice. So pretty good spell. It's a B overall. I like it. I've seen it used. It was a powerful effect, and in those scenarios, I think it was worth your 8th level spell slot. Yeah, it was pretty strong. Maddening Darkness. Action to cast, 10-minute duration, takes your concentration. Available to warlocks and wizards. Magical darkness spreads from a point you choose within range to fill a 60-foot radius sphere until the spell ends, so it's a huge area. The darkness spreads around corners. A creature with dark vision can't see through this darkness. Non-magical light, as well as light created by spells of 8th level or lower, can't illuminate the area. Shrieks, gibbering, and mad laughter, or gibbering, depending on, I've always said gibbering, which apparently is not correct. It probably should be gibbering. And mad laughter can be heard within the sphere. Whenever a creature starts its turn in the area, in the sphere, it must make a wisdom saving throw, taking 8d8 psychic damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. All right, so I think it's noteworthy to say that this is one of 2 spells in the game where the darkness blocks dark vision. Only the darkness spell and this block dark vision, because magical darkness does not inherently block dark vision. The feature has to say it blocks dark vision or it doesn't block dark vision. And this one specifically says it blocks dark vision. So there are literally 2 spells in the game that the magical darkness blocks dark vision. Now, there are other spells in the game that block dark vision, but it's through different reasons, like a fog cloud that just blocks everything but blind sight, or Hunger of Hadar that causes blindness if you're in the area, like you have the blinded condition, and that prevents blind sight, right? Because blind sight, no, that doesn't prevent. I mean, it doesn't prevent blind sight because blind sight specifically says that you can see while blinded, but blinded condition from Hunger of Hadar does block dark vision because dark vision is blocked by the blinded condition. And I also think it's interesting to note that the area and range of this is the same as like Odaluk's Freezing Sphere, and Odaluk's Freezing Sphere has a range of 300. But 150 is the same range as Sunburst, Circle of Death, and the area is the same as all 3 of those, right? The 60-foot radius sphere is the same as Odaluk's Freezing Sphere, Sunburst, and Circle of Death. That's the other one. Took me a second there. So really big areas, and it does have friendly fire. So with all of these spells, that big area is as much a boon as it is a detriment, right? If you're inside, it is unlikely that you're in a space that's more than 120 feet across, right? That's pretty rare when you're inside of anything, inside of a building, inside of a dungeon, a cavern, things like that. It can happen. It does happen. There are places. It's just very rare. So if you cast this in any of those areas, you're likely to hit yourself and all of your allies with it as well. Now, you might be able to see through it because you have Devil's Sight or something like that. You planned ahead, but it's going to deal damage. Yeah, you have to make a wisdom saving throw, or it's 8d8 psychic damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. 8d8 is 36, right? 36 damage on average, and it's psychic damage, which is one of the better damage types to deal. And it's going to be half even if they make the save. So it ends up being a decent chunk of damage if you just keep it going. That lasts 10 minutes as well. So it's not even a 1-minute thing, but you can't move it. And unlike the darkness spell, you can cast the darkness spell on an object, like a dagger, draw it out of its sheath, and then use it, right? And while the dagger is unsheathed, the darkness spreads out. And if you sheath it, the darkness goes away. You can't do that with this one either. So it's got a decent blast damage effect. Its darkness effect is probably pointless, or going to be mostly pointless, because most creatures have true sight at this point. I don't know, most. Many creatures have true sight at this point. So they can see right through the darkness. I'm going to give this one a C for a control effect, B for a blaster effect. Its value goes way up if you apply things like difficult terrain, plant growth, transmute rock, anything that slows their movement, and then you have push-pull effects. So if they finally make it out, you just push them back in. And if you're outdoors, so you have the area to do this, is super good. If you're fighting an army, yeah, super good. So it actually deserves some exclamation points on those. All right, Mighty Fortress. This is the wizard version of the Create a Stronghold for Yourself spell. Just like the Druids and Clerics have, right? But Druids is level 6, Druid Grove. Clerics is level 7, Temple of the Gods. And Wizards is level 8, Mighty Fortress. Although Wizard also has Galdur's Tower, which is level 4. 3? It's 3 or 4. Might be 3, right? So they can be, and then they have Wall of Stone. So between Wall of Stone and Galdur's Tower, you could be already creating just piece at a time, and for a lot less time, a stronghold that way. All right, so this is available to wizards only, 1-minute casting time. A fortress of stone erupts from a square area of ground of your choice that you can see within range. The area is 120 feet on each side. So this is the biggest one now. The Druid Grove was a 60-foot cube. The Temple of the Gods is a 90-foot cube. Yeah, and this one is a 120-foot cube. But yours is the highest level spell, so I guess, sure. And it must not have any buildings or other structures in the area. Any creatures in the area are harmlessly lifted up as the fortress rises. Okay, then it has 2 paragraphs of text that mean nothing but like sets the dimensions of what kind of building you can construct inside the area, which feels completely unnecessary. Just say it has this, it's this cubic size, and you decide any shape of the contents of the building inside that area. I don't know why they decided to spend 2 paragraphs of text describing what kind of where you could put walls and where you could put crenellations and where you could put turrets. Like, it seems totally unnecessary. So I'm going to skip that and then skip down to the last part here, which is it contains sufficient food. The last part of this third paragraph, it contains sufficient food to serve a 9-course banquet for up to 100 people each day. Furnishings, food, and other objects created by this spell crumble to dust if removed from the fortress. So it has total furnishings, unlike the Temple of the Gods and the Druid Grove. This one has furnishings, although one of the options for Druid Grove allows the plants to turn into furnishings for you. So this one provides food for 100 people. And it says it provides the food each day. Okay. A staff of 100 invisible servants obeys any command you give them by creatures you designate when you cast a spell. Each servant functions as if it was created by an unseen servant. So this is like Mordenkainen's Magnificent Mansion, which was a level 7 spell, or is a level 7 spell. That one only lasts an hour. No, it lasts 24 hours and is temporary, right? This lasts 7 days. It says instantaneous, but it lasts 7 days. So I'm actually going to put in the Google sheet that it's 7 days just so that you remember it actually lasts 7 days, but technically the duration is instantaneous for things like you can't, like, for example, you couldn't end the spell early, right? The 5.5 rules of spell casting says that you can end any spell early, even if it doesn't have concentration, no action required by you, right? But it has to have a duration. Well, this one doesn't have a duration. It's instantaneous. So once you create it, it lasts 7 days and you can't undo it. That's the only nuance there. But it also gives you unseen servants and food, just like Mordenkainen's Magnificent Mansion. This lasts 7 days, so it's 7 days of that effect instead of 1 day of that effect, which I guess makes sense because it's an 8th level spell versus a 7th level spell. The walls and turrets and keep are all made of stone that can be damaged. Each 10-foot by 10-foot section of stone has an AC 15, 30 hit points per inch of thickness. It is immune to poison and psychic damage, reducing a section of stone to 0 hit points destroys it, and might cause connected sections to buckle and collapse at the DM's discretion. And note that it says 30 hit points per inch of thickness. Well, the thickness is decided up in those earlier paragraphs. It can be like 1 foot wall thick. It could be 1 foot thick or 6 inches thick in different scenarios. So 1 foot thick would be 12 times 30 or 360 hit points. If it's a 1 foot thick stone wall, or if it's 6 inches thick, it's half of that. So 3 times 180 hit points. So the stone is pretty tough. After 7 days, or when you cast a spell somewhere else, the fortress harmlessly crumbles and sinks back into the ground, leaving any creatures that were inside safely on the ground. Casting a spell in the same spot once every 7 days makes a fortress permanent. So you can make it permanent. You don't cast it every day. You just cast it every 7 days, which is good because every time you cast this, it takes a diamond worth 500 gold pieces, which is consumed. So this is the only one that has a material component being consumed if you want to spend the year creating the mighty fortress. Yeah. So that's going to cost you 52, right, times 500 gold pieces, or 26,000 gold pieces in order to create this fortress. So yours is the most expensive. Now, you might note that there's something missing here, which the Temple of the Gods and the Druid Grove both have, which is they have defensive options, right? Druid Grove has a bunch of defensive options. You create wind and spike growth and different, fog stuff. The Temple of the Gods, you can just choose creature types, and they can't teleport in unless they make a charisma saving throw. And even if they do make it in, they have like the Bane effect on them. Only you and people you designate can open that door, right? Nothing can pass through the walls by any means, right? Not through the ethereal plane, not through anything else. They can't phase through the walls. It says nothing can pass through. So even if they have like incorporeal movement, they cannot move through the walls because it says the walls block everything passing through. So they both got their safety features built in. This one does not, right? It has no safety features. It doesn't provide you any soldiers. It just gives you food and the building. That's it. So you might be saying like, wait, that doesn't make sense. Wizards, this is the highest level of all the spells, and why do wizards have no defenses? Remember, wizards have Mordenkainen's Private Sanctum at level 4, which provides all those same kind of things, right? People can't teleport in, stops that kind of stuff. They also have guards and wards at level 6, which provides all those other defensive options, creating gusts of wind and fog and blocking sight. So the wizard already has access to those spells, which is why, and the druids and clerics do not have access to those kind of spells, which is why the druid and cleric had to get it with their stronghold, and you do not. So I don't think it's a big deal. If you want to create a great stronghold, what you would do is cast Mighty Fortress, and then every day in that Mighty Fortress, cast Mordenkainen's Private Sanctum and Guards and Wards I mean, you would cast Mighty Fortress once every 7 days, but then every day you cast Mordenkainen's Private Sanctum and Guards and Wards to add in the defensive features to your Mighty Fortress. And at the end of a year, you have the same thing. I mean, yours is probably more powerful than theirs, than the Druids and Clerics, but I guess that's as it should be. Yours is the highest level spell, and you're a wizard who's known for their strongholds. So there you go. I'm going to give this one a C exclamation point, same as the others, right? And that's because it's really great when you want a stronghold, really great when you need a stronghold. In those moments, right, this is S tier. It's awesome. You just don't need a stronghold very often, right? It's not very often that your stronghold is attacked. It's not very often that matters, right? You could add this to your bastion, and the DM would have to rule, like, what does that mean for your bastion? Does it give your bastion more defenses? Can you hire people? One of the things that I think is worth noting with Mighty Fortress is, right, if you think back to the actual like medieval times and castles and things like that, if you just gave people food, that would probably be enough payment for them. If you fed them really well every day, which is what this is, a 9-course banquet for 100 people every day, that's probably sufficient payment for 100 soldiers. Like, they would be tickled pink if that was their only payment. Yeah. If you gave them like a few copper pieces a week on top of that, they'd be super, super happy. So yeah, you can just use that food as payment for the soldiers. So then that doesn't cost you any actual money. After that 100, though, you got to find something to deal with it. But you don't need servants because you have 100 unseen servants. So you don't need servants. You can pay the soldiers with the food this thing creates. I mean, you're pretty much self-sufficient at that point with no additional maintenance cost for you. Again, the DM has to rule, what does it mean to your bastion if you add this to it? Because the bastion also has rules for a barracks and soldiers and things like that, and they are paid for by the bastion, so it doesn't cost you any maintenance cost anyway. But like the fantasy of having a castle, the fantasy, the cinematics of it, very, very cool stuff. It's just actual gameplay effect. Not very often is it going to have an impact. So I'm going to give it a C, but when it has an impact, this is a big deal. So a C exclamation point. Okay, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. If you don't have enough D&D in your life, check the video description. You can find a link to join my Discord. There's no paywall. It's just a community of people who love D&D, and if you love D&D, it's probably a good fit. There's also a link to join my Patreon. I've added 2 new tiers, so I've opened up 10 more spots for the Artificer supporter tier, which is people that if you want me to help you work on some homebrew, I'll work with you on the homebrew, and there'll be other people who are involved in the same kind of thing, and they can give you feedback as well. And if you want, when we reach done, and it's a quality, then I'll cover it in a video like I do with Comrade Warner stuff. So there's 10 more spots for that, and I've added a new frontliner tier. Yes, check that one out if you're interested in being a frontliner for DSR. There's also a link to the Google Drive that has this Google Sheet in it. That has all the ratings and rankings for everything I've done. I've got rankings for books, rankings for classes, subclasses, partner content, spells, feats, backgrounds, species, all kinds of stuff. And I try to be consistent with it, but sometimes my ratings drift, sometimes I miss some things, and I really appreciate having community involvement in refining those ratings. So if you have thoughts on how those could be improved, how some of those should be adjusted, I'd love to hear it. If you have a lot of thoughts on a lot of different pieces of content, probably best to join the Discord. I've got a whole channel dedicated to discussing the ratings to help refine that stuff. And the more people that get involved, the better it gets. So yeah, and that Google Drive, that Google Sheet, everything in it, community resource, free to use, no paywall, and it never will be. My mission and goal is to make D&D more accessible to more people and lower the, let's call it, paperwork overhead to getting into D&D. Whether it's your first time or your 100th time making a character, it can save you some time, help you focus in on what you want this character to be, and that's the goal. So if I paywalled that would be counterproductive. So it'll never be paywalled. And remember, D&D is a game. The point of it is to have fun with your friends. So please be cool when you play D&D, all right? Okay, catch you next time.